streets the place. You got the time. Listen to this. Yo, bust the rhyme.
Fred Krueger the myth, or Fred Krueger the man. It doesn't matter because I'm still rapping about him, understand? So sit back, check, I'm gonna bust the rhyme. Grab a hold of your face, it's Krueger time.
The question is, Scott, is this funny enough for us to get a copyright strike? Do you recognize this song?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a Freddy Krueger rap, but I feel like this didn't come out in 1984. This feels like a later 80s thing, like maybe like an 87.
You don't know who this is.
I have no idea. Run DMC?
This is the
Fat Boys.
This is the Fat Boys.
Okay.
Amy walks around the house and goes, whatever that sound is that I can't do. I just sound like a fucking orangutan. Yeah. And she laughs at me every time because it's so bad. And now I immortalized it on the air.
Beautiful. When did this come out?
This was probably a few years after Nightmare on Elm Street 3, because in this song, they referenced the Dream Warriors in the past, and that was part 3.
Right. Okay. And that would have came out in what, like 89?
Could have been. Feels right about that time. It's when special effects, it's what we were talking about before. Special effects got more crazy. They were like, well, we got to insert them into everything. So as Freddy Krueger movies kept going, suddenly part 3, they have special powers to fight Freddy Krueger, and they're shooting lightning out of it. But it was weird, because it was a lot different from the other 2 movies, but it was a great movie.
Yeah. I remember the movie. I don't remember this. I want to say I remember like a music video for this, but I can't time when that would have been.
I think there was one, but there was also one for Will Smith, or at least there was a song. I know there was a Freddy rap with Will Smith and Jazzy Jeff. And I was going to use that, but I was like, we're definitely going to get a copyright strike on that. I'm taking a gamble with Fat Boys.
Yeah, I don't remember that one at all, as far as Will Smith, Fresh Prince. No.
I think it was called Nightmare on My Street. Not ringing any bells?
No.
That may not even been the name. I think that could just be a lyric.
I listened to a lot of DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince as a kid. Like that Home Base album, I was listening to that. But that was much later. That was like 94, I think, when that came out.
Yeah. Well, there was a run there where horror movies and MTV really were starting to sync up. Like all of a sudden, Alice Cooper was doing a Friday the 13th movie. And then Dokken did a Nightmare on Elm Street one. And they were making these like videos.
Yeah.
So horror got kind of cool in MTV for a hot minute.
We're trying to bring back the Thriller.
Everyone's trying to. I want the Thriller. Bring it back. Yeah, that's what they were trying to do. I love it. It's a great point. Well, why are we talking about this? Because today's episode is the 5th and final installment of Things That Go Bump in the Night, our Halloween series. And we're talking about my favorite of everything. So far, we've talked about vampires. Mm-hmm. I'm like, all right. We talked about witches. I didn't get it. Don't get it. Still don't get it. But I was like, okay. I was thoroughly entertained. We talked about, zombies. I like zombies. That was a good one. What am I missing? We talked about
ghosts.
And I'm a little bit meh on ghosts, but slashers.
Slasher movie villains. Yeah, that's today's topic.
This I like. And the reason I like this is because not only were these the ones that scared me the most, but they were also the most fantastical. These were things that could never happen. Every time you saw one like Pumpkinhead or Jason or Child's Play, like you were like, these things can't happen. And at the end of every one of these, the bad guy gets killed. He loses, right? He's the bully that runs through all of these movies and he torments the other jerks who run around until finally there's one person left, right? They call that the final girl because it's usually a girl. And she's always, the nicest one of the group. She didn't have premarital sex. She didn't do anything wrong. She didn't even smoke the reefer. But she's the one that kills Jason. And it's a revenge movie. And that's why I liked them. I didn't know until later, but I loved when we would get to the end. It's like, get that son of a bitch. Yeah. You never felt like, oh my God, any of this is real, because it couldn't be. It's ridiculous. And then they kill the monster at the end. It's almost like every Disney cartoon. It's almost like every Marvel movie, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
And today's horror movies and your ghost movies and all those don't have that storyline. Just not the trope for those.
Yeah.
And that's probably why I don't like them as much and why I like these. Now, one more statement as we are on this topic. My problem now with horror movies is they don't have that style at all. The good guy doesn't beat the bad guy at the end. The bad guy butchers the hell out of the good guy for long periods of time, and then it ends. Like, now I don't know what's going on in horror movies, so much so that I don't want to watch them because I've seen so many that have been that terrible. And I think the magic for me is gone. We talked about that a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, I feel like the character arc of the main villain has certainly changed. It used to be like, they're bad, they're bad, they're bad, they're bad, they're getting worse, and then they're dead. And now it's just like, they're bad, they're bad, they're bad, and they just keep getting worse. And the movie ends, and there's rarely resolution, and they always keep the possibility open for a sequel. Not that the ones we're going to talk about didn't do that, because it was always like, the end, question mark, question mark. But, you know, it was always resolution, at least for that story, in case there wasn't the next installment coming 2 years later.
And I think of all the monsters we talked about, this is the only ones where you actually walk away with different characters.
Yeah.
Like, people know who a Freddy Krueger is. People still dress like him. You know, kids still dress like him.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird in and of itself. Like, wait a minute, should your kid really be dressing up as a killer? But, well, it's America. Do whatever you want. You know? But he's still out there. Jason, I see so many kids dressed as Michael Myers, Chucky. Like, these guys are iconic.
Yeah.
And they're the only monsters, the only genre really that has these kind of monsters.
And I will say, in putting together this list, I really did narrow it down to those horror movie icons, because there are a lot that are out there that could fit the slasher movie villain, but there's only the few that have that staying power like you're talking about. So that's who we're going to talk about today. I know, I'm sure you have some you're going to throw in as well, but we'll get there when we do the main topic.
Been excited about this all day. So, little shot out of a cannon.
There's a reason why I saved this topic for episode 5. I mean, you want to go out with a bang, right?
We'll work our way up to a bang. All right? All right, well, let's continue on. But before we do, I want to let you know that we have a website, toomuchcgi.com. You can go there. You can download all of our episodes. We're also on every single streaming platform. If you're listening to us on YouTube, you can go find us on Spotify, on all of them. We're on all of them. We're everywhere you want us to be. Wasn't that American Express's?
American Express, You said it. Yep.
We are American Express. We are also on Twitter at TooMuchCGI. If you want to come and talk to us there and laugh with us there, I post some wacky stuff and some news items once in a while. Worst things to follow on Twitter.
That's a ringing endorsement.
Ringing endorsement, yeah. X. Go follow us on X. Shit.
Oh, no.
That music can only mean one thing. Another goddamn dead celebrity.
Yep.
This was funny because you actually rung me. You said, Suzanne Summers died. And I'm like, damn it. I heard about it like 2 minutes before you told me. And I was thinking, you know, it seems like every time we mention them on the show, they go.
So are we the Black Cloud? Or are we mentioning them because we're talking about dead celebrities and they're probably next to go? Like, we're not naming names.
We talked about her in the in the infomercial episode.
We did. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Selling the old Thigh Master.
Who's left from Three's Company? Jack's gone. Cindy's gone.
I guess Janet.
Janet's left. I wonder what Janet's doing now.
I don't know. Mr. Furley's gone.
Early.
We gotta go look into that Mrs. Roper pub crawl you mentioned the other week.
Evidently, it's already happened. We missed it. But yeah.
Ah, shit.
The whole town dresses up like Mrs. Roper for some reason. Mrs. Roper.
Man, the Goodwill must have been empty those days, my friend.
Amy and I have been watching, because we talked about it here, actually. I said, I never saw the Tales from the Crypt. I wasn't an HBO kid, so I never had them. And Amy.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and Amy came up. She goes, we got to go watch them. So we've been watching them. And there was one great one with this woman whose, her husband was always gone. And the husband comes home and more, the woman's kind of getting closer with these other animals. Like dogs are coming into the house. She's taking a lot of care of the dogs. And he comes home from work and he's exhausted. And he's fucking cats and dogs. Well, the woman was Mrs. Roper. And my wife and I just looking at it the whole time. We're like, God damn it, who is that? And all of a sudden she said something in a way. And it's like, oh, of course, that's Mrs. Roper. Just an iconic voice. All of them. Every character on that show was great. There wasn't one shitty character until Suzanne went away and those other fake Cindy's came in.
Yeah.
I didn't like any of them.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, just not to get too far off topic and take the attention off of Suzanne here, but
It's too late.
I love the fact that was the episode of Tales from the Crypt that you brought up because I feel like, one, it's Mrs. Roper, but two, I feel like if you went away for an extended period of time, that's what you would come home to. Amy would fill your house with stray animals.
Oh, mine would be dogs and ducks.
Yeah. And that would be your reaction. These goddamn ducks and these goddamn dogs.
You know, I've been thinking too, we suddenly have a snake invasion. Like they're all over. I've never seen a snake here before. Maybe Amy is raising snakes. That's probably it.
Could be.
Yeah, she loves her animals. Oh my God, what if we were one of them houses that smelled like dogs and we never knew?
Oh.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I had that thought the other day. I was like, what if we stink in this house because we had a party? And I was like, what if people are walking in and going, wow, this house stinks like dogs? And I didn't realize that.
Gone nose blind?
Is that what it's called? Yes.
Oh, man.
There's upsides to it. See, things don't bother me like that. Any reason to play my little sound effect. But I hung out with a couple people, Adrian and Jack, and they're people that you know of. I don't know if you know Adrian.
I heard you hung out with Mr. Jack, who's been a show contributor with emails and things. Yeah, well, Jack told me you had thoughts on Ahsoka, and he was like, yeah, or on Loki, rather. He's like, yeah, Bill was talking about Loki, and I was like, Bill and I didn't talk about Loki season 2 on the show. Maybe you're thinking of Ahsoka. He's like, no, I finally met the bastard in real life. We had a whole conversation about Loki, and I was like, oh, okay, I thought you were talking about the show. That's pretty funny.
Were we talking about Loki?
Yeah, and Adrian, too. Adrian got some recommendations for shows. He wants us to do a Walker, Texas Ranger theme show, which we might get around to.
Yeah, it was fun. I was all kind of shy. I was like, got a little stoned. I don't remember talking about Loki. Sorry, Jack. I'm sure I know what I said. It's the same shit I say to you about all of these shows.
Going back to the well.
Jeez. Yeah, I'm a broken record. You guys would not want to hang out with me in person. I'm as annoying as I am here. Well, Suzanne Summers, we're supposed to give you a good tribute, but we started talking about me.
Yeah. Sorry, Suzanne. Yeah, she had a pretty long run. Passed away of breast cancer, I read. I didn't know she was struggling with breast cancer for as long as what she did.
I was trying to think of how we could tribute her. And I'm like, I just don't know enough about her. I know she did that other show, not Step by Step, but one of the gang or something. She had some sitcom. Maybe it was Step by Step.
It was her and Patrick Duffy.
Yeah.
Also passed away, right? It was a TGIF show.
All right, you're going to make me look it up.
What is it?
The brain works in really strange ways. It was Step by Step. I totally threw a name out there knowing it wasn't it, and it was it. And my favorite line in Google right here, Patrick Duffy remembers dear and deep friendship with Suzanne Summers.
So he's not dead? Well, you know what this means. He's probably going to be next to go. Oh, shit. Well, the brain does work in mysterious ways.
Oh, you are the angel of death. Oh, man.
Well, here's the thing I remember about Step by Step. I remember there was like a neighbor kid or maybe a cousin named Cody, and he became like, he was almost like the Ashton Kutcher of that 70s show. He was like the dumb guy, but he became like the Urkel of Step by Step. And like every episode had to have this fucking dumb Cody guy in it. So it had nothing to do with any of their 6 kids, nothing to do with Patrick Duffy or Suzanne Summer. It was this fucking dumb Cody kid and how he came in and annoyed everybody.
I think I was dating by then because I really don't remember watching these.
Yeah, and I remember like he was always trying to like date the oldest daughter of one of them. And I was just like, isn't that like your cousin? But I guess it's by marriage, so it's okay. But like, it didn't seem okay while I was watching TGIF as a kid.
Mother, this seems suspicious. This is not what you taught me. I also seem to remember her in a scene in a pool getting shot in one of the Dirty Harry movies, Magnum Force.
I have no memory of that.
It'd be a fever dream, but it also may be true. We don't verify.
Dirty Harry, he also passed away. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Clint. Oh, we can start that hashtag.
I know he's still alive. I know. That's a joke.
Someone will write in.
I really thought Patrick Duffy was dead, though.
Any other fuck-upperies? Let's just get them all off our chest.
Amy called me out on a fuck up brief from last week. I was talking about the movie The Craft, and I said that Neve Campbell was the new girl that kept her powers. Apparently it wasn't. Apparently Neve Campbell was one of the 3 existing witches at the school. And then a Robin Tooney? I don't know. She came in as the new girl. So your wife schooled me on 1996's The Craft and how I really didn't know what the fuck I was talking about there. And yeah, guilty as charged, I suppose.
Well, if you need content, you can make fun of her for having a DVD of it downstairs in our basement where nobody's ever going to pick it up, look at it, or pop it into a DVD player. And I've said to her a million times, why don't we at least try to get 10 cents for it? But it sits there and collects dust.
Well, if I'm looking for ammo to fire back with, and that's not what the point of fuck upperies is, but if I wanted to counter it with something, I would question, why'd you pay $30 for the fucking sitter?
I think she picked that movie too.
Jonah Hill's finest.
Got some taste.
That's all I got as far as fuck upperies. Anybody else write in or anything there on that front?
I just can't shame you anymore. I can't tell you what they wrote. So.
Oh, there's no shame in my game.
Nah, there's no more. But we could talk about other people's fuck upperies.
Oh, let's do that.
I went down another rabbit hole.
Oh, what this time?
Thinking a lot about the Goonies.
Okay.
Yeah, the Goonies, man. That's a goddamn good movie.
I know a lot about the Goonies.
So I'm curious then if I could stump you. I have come up with my list of things Scott doesn't know. I've changed the name of the segment to Things Scott Doesn't Know, which are really things that I didn't know until I found this out watching other people tell me about Goonies. So as usual, I'm taking other people's hard work, using it as my own, absolute plagiarism. Beautiful. And I'm not even going to talk about that octopus at the end. The octopus that they made for the final scene and by the boat that they were going to say was going to be the thing they fight, but they needed a boat. They built a boat because they didn't think the octopus was strong enough.
And Data still references the octopus when they come to land and meet the parents on the shore. He still says that they fought the octopus and he talks about all that kind of stuff, but the octopus never made the final scene.
So in a version that I have, and I don't know where I got it when I was a kid, there were final scenes where you saw the octopus. It was just kind of like rolling footage.
Yeah.
So you saw that version?
Yeah. I saw it on YouTube, but yeah, they used to have different versions that they would show on the television to make up for full run times and commercial breaks and things like that. So yeah, I did see, it was like an orange octopus that grabbed them around the legs when they got off the One-Eyed Willie's pirate ship and when the Fratellis came down and they jumped off the ship. Yeah, I think the man walked the plank, right?
Yeah.
They walked the plank and then there was the octopus down in the water. Yeah. I've seen that still shot. I don't know if I saw the actual video of it, but I saw the still shot.
Yeah. So talking about production, right out of IMDb, the swearing within the film was deliberately and strategically placed so it could easily be drowned out by broadcasters who wish to remove it. If you watch closely, it often happens where there was a lot of background noise, like the police car chase at the beginning of the film, or when there was running water or another loud source of sound nearby. This way, the broadcaster can lose the profanity in the sound mix or can cut out a couple seconds of footage without losing anything significant in the film. That's fascinating. And that explains some things that I've always thought about. I used to see versions of films on TV, and there would be like extra scenes just here and there and like different cuts. And I remember seeing a version of Halloween that even like lasted longer. And I've later learned that the networks do get delivered a version of the film that sometimes has to be stretched out to meet their standards and their, the time that they have blocked out for the movies and commercials and all that. So that's why extra stuff sometimes gets added.
I remember in Halloween, like there was like a whole extra thing where he kills the tow truck driver and then steals his overalls. And there was like an extended scene with that portion of it with Michael Myers. But yeah, they were definitely different shots. Maybe even things that became director's cuts released in later anniversary editions and things like that.
Yeah, that's neat how they do that. I remember one time watching Short Circuit when it first came out with my father, and he goes,
"No, disassemble."
Yeah, my dad goes, "I've seen this." I go, "No, you didn't. It just came out." He goes, "No, I've totally seen this on TV." I'm like, "No, it just came out in the theaters, and it's just now on VHS." He's like, "Guys," and he explained the movie, and we're like, "Oh, you have seen this?"
Wow.
So at some point, it must not have been put out in the theaters. Maybe they couldn't get distribution, and it just aired somewhere. My dad saw it. But he sure as hell either played a great trick on us and went to the movies by himself, which was very uncharacteristic of him, or he saw it.
I wonder if he saw it like on an airplane or something.
Yeah, don't know.
Tell me more about the Goonies.
John Matuzak, he played Sloth. Have you seen the scenes of them trying to put that mask on him?
Rocky Road?
I don't think I've seen that. I know he was a football player. That's all I know about John.
So he played for the Raiders. That's why he was wearing a Raiders shirt.
Right.
And the documentary, I said the scene, but the documentary, I don't even know who made it because it was one of those. That's another thing about YouTube I love. I don't know where this documentary shit comes from, but it like floats around on the internet and then some kid grabs it, packages it, and calls it his documentary. Okay. So some rando's documentary was showing some footage of them putting the makeup on this guy and like the robot fake eye that lowered a little bit and then put skin over that. And I forgot how good that makeup was. And this guy, they would just put it on him over and over and put him in that makeup chair for like 6 hours. And at one point, they got real close to water. And the director, Richard Donner's like, maybe it was Corey Feldman. Corey, damn it, do not get a drop on him. It'll ruin. And then he splashed and got a drop on him. He's like, we got to do the makeup all over again.
Oh, shit. That was good makeup, though, because like that fake eye even like blinked and everything.
Yeah.
Like it moved around. It was all very robotic.
Yeah.
Very well done.
Very good.
Very good practical CGI or practical effects, not CGI.
I like this one. At around 1 hour and 2 minutes in, Richard Donner unintentionally starts giggling when they filmed the scene in which Chunk starts crying when the ice cream gets taken off him by Jake. You can hear him giggling in the back, and it's the director. I like that. That made me laugh.
Yeah. I like that when he started rambling off, like everything he did wrong was just like completely ad-libbed by the actor that played Chunk.
I didn't put that in here,
So
but yeah,
funny.
that's a good one too. I wrote, Donner and crew drove all the way up to California until they found the rainy town of Astoria in Oregon. So they were like, how about we all just get into the car and we just drive up the California coast from LA? And I've done that drive and it's gorgeous. And they said they stop at all these places and they're like, maybe. And then it just got too dark and rainy one night. So they pulled into a hotel and woke up in the morning and looked at what they pulled into and kind of saw how beautiful the area was. And they said, this is it. Let's do it here. So the whole
That's
production basically moved into the house and they filmed in that house. And they even like built things like stairs in that house. Normally they do all this on a soundstage. And some of it was done on the soundstage. Like the attic was a soundstage, but everything else was in the house.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons, at least for me, the movie felt so big and special because the house was full of windows. You could look all out and see this incredible area that looks so different from any area that I've ever been in or grew up or lived in, rather, when I was young. So that was awesome for me to experience where they lived. Killer little area.
Yeah. And talk about things you can find on YouTube. Both Justin Scard in Random Land and Adam the Woo have both gone to Astoria and done shot-for-shot remakes. In the opening scene, like the actual streets that the cars drove down, where Chunk smashed his milkshake up against the window, and the jailhouse where they break Bertelli out of at the opening scene there, where he acts like he hung himself in the jail cell. That's actually like now a Goonies museum. You can go there and check out. So they did shot-for-shot remakes on there. So check out Adam the Woo or Justin Scard, and it's good stuff out there as far as the recreations and shot lineups.
I wrote here, the Fratelli brothers really didn't like each other in real life. Do you know that?
I did not, but that's funny that they always fought the entire time. It was like Joe Pantanello and I forget the other guy's name.
Yeah. I didn't write down his name, but yeah, that's what they said. They said they just would pick on each other. Like the one guy stole the other guy's license plate. The other guy nailed the door shut on the other guy. They were just constantly, and they really didn't like each other. And they were like, you know what? You can't use him for that scene. He's bald because, Joe was wearing a wig at that time.
Yeah.
So Joe rips off the wig. He goes, well, then use it in the movie. Like he was trying to like ruin this guy's chances in the role. I guess they're friends now because they were both talking about it in this documentary, kind of like, yeah, we don't like each other, but it seemed like they liked each other.
They're playing it up a little bit.
Maybe at the time they really didn't, but I suspect that was just funsies, but who knows?
Well, they had great on-screen chemistry. I mean, they used it if they didn't, so it really came through in the final piece.
Yeah. I like this one. So there's a second unit scene that Steven Spielberg shot. So he was the producer, right? But what happens
Yeah.
is their second unit directors, maybe third unit directors. I'm not really sure. I've never worked on a movie set that big, but the director does not make everything in the movie. The smaller things get made by assistant directors. And in this case, they were
Sure.
running behind schedule. So Steven said, yeah, man, this is like my production. I'm paying for it. I guess I'll chip in. And he's like, I want to do the one scene with the gorilla.
Yes, there was that whole escaped gorilla from the zoo. That was like a whole unused side story. Yeah.
They're saying they got a gorilla. They go to set one day and there's these people walking around in gorilla suits that they used from the Tarzan movie that was just done, like, right before whatever that Gray Stoke or whatever the hell that was. And yeah, Steven Spielberg loved this scene. He loved it. He loved it. He filmed it. He loved it. It reminded him of old, silly cinema where they would use monkeys. And he really thought this would be great. And did you know what happened to it?
Yeah, I mean, at one point, the monkeys were going to steal the car from the country club. And they were going to steal like the white convertible that the one punk ass kid that tries to kill Bran on the little tricycle.
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah, like the monkeys were going to steal that guy's car. The whole thing just got axed.
Yeah.
But I don't know why. What happened to it?
The monkeys, I think, got free because when they were underground shaking the pipes, I think they shook something that released the monkeys.
Yes.
Yeah. So what happened to it?
Yes.
The footage was sent back to the studio. Like, okay, we shot it. It got lost. Somebody misfiled it. Somewhere in LA, in one of these giant buildings where all this stuff is managed, is the footage of the monkey. Maybe monkeys.
Gorillas.
It sounded like a terrible scene, so.
It wouldn't have fit in very well. I mean, that would be like almost too out of place,
Yeah.
It would be a little rat finka boo boo,
Very.
Just a random gorilla.
Oh, that would be good, though. Every movie should have a random gorilla. So one of the well-known things is the end of the movie wasn't going to be that pirate ship, right? They had the pirate ship in the cave, right? They had the octopus.
Yeah.
But the sailing pirate ship, they built a real pirate ship. They were like, the octopus isn't working. It's not that good. This can't be the end. So they came up with that pirate ship idea. And a lot of people know the story that the director brought the kids out and the kids go and they look at the pirate ship for the first time and the reaction is real. But the one thing that I found out, it was the Brand, right? The oldest kid goes, oh shit, when he sees it. And they're like, oh, that's too many curses in the movie. And they had to reshoot it. But that's pretty cool. So that ship was built and the kids saw it for the first time and that's their real reaction.
It's funny you mentioned the cursing in there and the timing of the cursing. Like, I'm trying to think of it. Like, I can't picture a lot of cursing in that movie.
There's a little bit of PG words like shit, but not too many. But then there are scenes like, remember the statue where the
he broke the dick off?
the erection on the statue? Like, some of that stuff was pretty edgy.
Oh, yeah. That's my mom's favorite piece.
And it was like, is this a kid's movie? Who knows? Like, I saw this with my parents. I was like, uh-oh. These are the jokes? Oh, shit.
I remember Chunk glued it back on upside down and they were like, he's going to piss in his face.
If God meant it to be like that, we'd all be pissing on our faces.
That's what it is. Yeah.
I know that movie well. Did you know that Chunk auditioned to be Mouth because he thought he would be a perfect Mouth because he could do impressions? I
didn't know that.
When he tried out, they said, well, we got a guy for Mouth. You ought to be a Chunk. So he said, okay, I'll be Chunk.
Now he's like a Hollywood lawyer, right?
Yeah, he looks great, too. He's thinned. He looks awesome.
No more truffle shuffle.
Yeah. His name is Jeff Cohen, the guy we're talking about. Jeff Cohen got the chickenpox after he got the role of Chunk. He showed up on the set anyway, afraid they'd replace him otherwise. That could have fucking ruined everything.
What if he would have given everybody chickenpox?
That's great. That's great.
Oh, man.
The last thing I got here is mostly shot in sequence. Total production took 5 months. That's not something I think they do very often.
No.
So that's kind of neat.
They jump all over the place.
Yeah. So as they kind of grow together as a team, as friends, as coworkers, and then as actors, the end, they seem like they're really close, and that makes sense. They've been hanging out for 5 months. So very cool.
Good deal, man. It's like going to school for, half a year.
Yeah. Playing with Octopus.
I also find it funny that for something that's produced by Steven Spielberg, that the aquatic monster is the thing that didn't work. Like, takes him right back to Jaws.
Yeah, he loves that stuff. I was watching a breakdown of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and like some of that really like awful horror stuff is him. He loves some of that brutal horror stuff, and he did really push some heavy duty things into some PG movies. I mean, just think of the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. The one guy's face blows up, the other guy's face melts. That's some heavy imagery for a kid.
For sure. I remember that those scenes, they definitely stayed with me. Like, it was always like, oh, this is the part where I look away.
I remember being out back a neighbor's house, and I remember I must have been 10, maybe 11, and I looked into the back door window at the TV, and I remember seeing a woman just sitting there eating a banana, when all of a sudden a man sneaks up behind her, cuts her head off, and the blood goes all over the banana. And I went, what the hell are they watching? Later, as I got older, not much older, as I got older and I discovered the Friday the 13th series, I re-saw that scene and I went, there it is. That's what, so all this time, that was Friday the 13th. And I bring this up because I am the segue master and I am segueing us into the main segment.
All right. As promised last week and at the top of the episode today, we're going to talk about the slasher movie monsters. You call them monsters? Slasher movie villains?
Well, they're monsters, but there are some that were just people.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few. Like, to me, Leatherface is a monster. I mean, he's doing things and can survive things that most human beings can't do. Michael Myers can stab somebody against a wall and lift them, right? He can fall out of a, he could fall out of a building after getting shot and get up. So he's a monster.
Yeah. Well, that's who we're talking about today. Really, I started with my favorite, and you just kind of hinted at it there, but these aren't really any particular order. I just started, as I often do, with just what comes to mind. And like I said at the top of the show, in putting this list together, putting this show together, I really wanted to focus on like the horror icons. Yeah. So as I mentioned last week, my favorite of all time, 1978, John Carpenter's Halloween, Michael Myers. I think he is the GOAT.
I think he is too. I think that movie, and I've seen it so many times, is probably the best slasher movie because everything else is, I mean, it's the Jimi Hendrix. Everybody else is doing electric guitar like Jimi Hendrix even today. We can't help it. He invented the sound and style. We just all do versions of it.
Yeah, I know some people might push back and say, no, Jason's the icon, but Friday the 13th wouldn't have existed if Halloween didn't make bank. And I know we've talked about that on here multiple times, but this was a very unexpected, popular movie and really was the first of its kind.
And one thing to remember, too, these movies weren't exactly, hey, I'm going to make this and the whole world's going to see it. It's, I'm going to make this, and if I'm lucky, I can get it down the East Coast, So where Halloween might have been more successful over there on the West Coast, other people were trying to steal the formula and make their own money on the other coast. And
sure.
Sean Cunningham, who did Friday the 13th, will say, oh, yeah, we saw everybody heard about Halloween. That one got big enough that it kind of traveled around the country, and we are all trying to make our version of Halloween.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I mean, do we have to go into a whole breakdown of these movies and do a synopsis? What do you think?
Well, I can tell you that there's a point where, you make the first one, and then they come back to Carpenter, and they're like, look, that did great. Let's do another. And he's kind of not that into it. That's why the second one was, did he direct the second one?
I don't know.
I know Deborah Hill had a lot to do with it. That was his wife at the time and producing partner.
Yeah.
And then the third one was, hey, let's try something totally new, which is fascinating because everybody hated it then. But now I could introduce you to a ton of people that actually think part 3 is the best movie. Like, it's really grown on them.
The Masks?
Yeah. They just love it.
Yeah.
They're like, we got over the fact that Michael Myers wasn't in it. And as a Halloween movie, as a horror movie for Halloween, it's a great movie. But then they decided, nope, that didn't work. We're going to bring him back. They had part 4. They introduced these ideas that there were pagans. Then all of a sudden there was a group of pagans and Michael Myers was their Chewbacca. Like, there was crazy things that started to happen. And then they said, all right, we're going to reboot the whole thing. I remember they tried one with new internet. Like, people were like watching him through internet, like cams. It was like really early, like 90s, 2000 internet. I barely remember that. Busta Rhymes was in it. Paul Rudd was in one of them. Paul Rudd was in part 5.
They had like Halloween H2O, and then they had like, because that came out in 2000.
So H2O is technically the sequel to part 1, and then it got forgotten about again.
Yes.
Then we got the Rob Zombie ones. He made one with the Weinsteins, and the Weinsteins were horrible to work with, and somehow he got talked into doing a second one. He's like, I hate this. And he was like, I'm done. I don't want to do any more of these. So he quit. And then Blumhouse, right? They come in and they're like, we're now going to take over. And they made 3 Halloween movies. I hate them. I can't stand them.
Yeah, I didn't like them at all.
And the end of the part 3 is so like beyond anything good. It made no sense. Nobody's happy about that one. I mean, I'm not going to ruin it for anybody, but they just tried new stuff. And I don't know what else you can do with this Michael Myers guy. He escapes a mental asylum and he kills people. Like, that's about it. That's as interesting as he can get.
Well, and you really point out the problem with these characters becoming icons, because another thing I should point out is, in putting these lists together, I'm basing it solely off of that first movie that introduced the character to us, that made us fall in love with these characters. Everything that came afterwards, that's all bullshit that happens when people are just trying to cash in and make money and tell a different story. Halloween's a little bit different, like as you hinted at there. Michael Myers wasn't a fixture for the entire Halloween series, but as we look at some of these other characters, the main villain is what the driving force was. But you're right. Michael Myers escaped from the insane asylum as a child on Halloween night, dressed as a clown, killed his older sister who was babysitting him. He was the babysitter murderer that was coming back to kill Jamie Lee Curtis. And it was who was at the time babysitting other kids in the neighborhood. And we get into the whole family thing where she's really his sister and she's the lone survivor of the Myers family. And Laurie Strode is not really Laurie Strode, but adopted. And there was this whole other backstory, but it's always about the shape. He wasn't even named Michael Myers, I guess he was, but on the script, he was just known as the Shape.
Right.
And one of the things that I think I like the most about Halloween, I mean, like, the body count's what, maybe 5? Like, it was really not like a horrible slasher flick. There was the goofy guy with the glasses that was trying to get it on with the girl upstairs, and he got pegged to the wall of the kitchen. But really, a lot of the movie is just suspense of him being there and the Shape being there. And then the Shape's not there. It was really just the whole suspense of it, like, when is it going to happen? Almost reminded me of Jaws in that way, where it's just like, it's there. Is it going to happen now? That's really the psychological horror aspect of it. It wasn't gore. It wasn't necessarily an all-out slasher flick. You got glimpses of it here and there, but it wasn't the driving force behind the movie.
I'm pretty sure I remember Carpenter saying that he took that idea from Hitchcock and Psycho.
Okay.
Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, and then part 2 was suddenly way gory, and then it was just a gore fest going forward. Do you know the mask that he wears? Do you know
Shatner?
Yeah, so you do that.
Yeah. It was a William Shatner mask that they cut the eye holes a little bigger on and painted white.
And ripped the sideburns off. You can still see where the plastic glue is on the side of the white mask.
That's funny. Yeah. I didn't notice that part of it. But yeah. Anything more to say about Michael Myers?
I think that's it, because I could go on forever and probably many of these, so I better restrain myself.
Well, next up here, we got Friday the 13th and Jason Voorhees. But it wasn't always Jason Voorhees, as we talked about with the game with Michelle. It was Mrs. Voorhees in the first one. Spoiler, yes, for a 1980 movie. But they saw how it cashed in with Michael Myers, and then they had the jump scare at the end where it was Jason, and now Jason's back from the depths of Camp Crystal Lake, and he's on a murder spree.
Yeah, we did talk a lot about that last time. They're making a TV show now.
Camp Crystal Lake is called, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's what it is. Camp Crystal Lake. I don't know anything about it when it comes out. I think I heard it's an A24 production. They're usually really good, so this might be amazing. But I'm wary because I'm a huge Jason fan. This is the perfect example of what I was talking about earlier, about what I love about all of these movies. But when they remade that Friday the 13th and Jason suddenly runs and he's Savage Jason, I'm like, oh, no, man, no. You're missing the fun of a slow stalking Jason.
as much as I said, like, I'm not going to talk about the sequels and things like that, like, Jason is Friday the 13th for all intents and purposes. You know, like, it was rumored that Jason, the ghost of Jason, was coming back to get revenge. And then we learned that it was his mother for part one. So as I just said, we're not going to go past part one that like ingrained these characters into the pop culture. I guess I have to go further than part one for Friday the 13th.
And it's a neat series too, because it started out like it's one Jason, it's one guy. They just couldn't get him dead. They tried for 3 movies. They just couldn't seem to get it right. And then they pulled that fake Jason thing, and then they pulled a zombie Jason thing. And it's like, you know, here's another franchise that had to figure out ways to keep this fresh, where Michael Myers went down some weird ass pagan rabbit hole. Like here, I don't hate their ideas until Jason went to Manhattan.
New York City.
Until Jason went to space. Until Jason went to hell. That one was terrible.
Went to hell.
Yeah. So they were great up until 7. 7 to a lot of people was the greatest one because the special effects are so good. But it's also the one where it's like the Freddy Krueger that did the Dream Master, Dream Warriors, or whatever they were. You know, all of a sudden people have powers. This is the one where they thought, what would it be like if Jason fought Carrie?
Oh, yeah.
So Jason fights a girl who's got telekinetic powers. Or is it telekinesis? That's what she has, right? I never remember. Is that reading minds or that's throwing objects across the room or both?
Telekinesis is moving things. Telepathy is reading minds.
Getting old. It's hard. It's hard to remember all this stuff.
Yeah, I got to read your mind sometimes.
You got to fill in the blanks. There's a lot of blanks.
And you just kind of did a great segue master. 1984's Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy Krueger. Now, Freddy's one where he plays the character. You know, Robert Englund played Freddy from 1984, and he just kind of like developed and built on that character all the way through all the sequels, but the character didn't change that much. It was always like, kill this person with a corny ass catchphrase, and we're moving on to the next one. And his body counts just kept getting higher and higher and higher, but he always had like the witty remark right before. He was almost like an action hero in that way, where he had the witty remark before he off somebody.
You know what they were? They were dad jokes. Now that I think of it.
They were dad jokes.
I'll kill you with dad jokes, bitch.
I'll give you a break.
I loved Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. Like, I was scared when I was a kid, but like looking back on it now, like it is very funny.
Yeah. Part 2 is the first one I saw. I remember going to my next door neighbor's house. My mother was hanging out with his mother, and we're just sitting in the family room watching this. And I'm like, I can't believe she's not yelling at me. You know, we just watched the whole thing, and you hear screaming and all sorts of horrible sounds. And I'm like, she's letting me watch it. Okay. And I remember trying to be tough, but it was some of those special effects were gruesome. Like when the nails, Freddy's nails come out of that guy's fingers and he kind of throws his body aside. That was heavy duty stuff. But I remember being able to watch it and go, oh, this isn't so bad. This is all silly. Like I was able to tell that's when I was finally mature enough to watch horror movies. So then I picked them up from there, Fangoria magazine and everything. It all started with Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, I feel like I was probably in 5th grade when kids would come to school and talk about Freddy and talk about these movies that they're watching. And it freaked me out. I remember vividly sitting in art class across from a kid, and he's talking to me and telling me about what happened in this Freddy movie. And like, as a kid, what you're imagining is 100 times worse than anything that was actually on the screen. So like later on that year when I actually saw the movie, I was like, oh, that's it? Okay. Like, it's not that bad. So I definitely know what you're talking about there with that experience of, you know, seeing it and being shocked, but being like, yeah, but it looks fake. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like in your head, what you're imagining is like very vivid, very real. You can't necessarily always get that on film, but then when you actually see the real deal, it's like, all right, kind of a letdown.
Yeah, yeah. And that whole series, talk about a letdown. Like it just went down the tubes.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, they were having the dream child, the dream, everything was the dream something.
It was the Dream Master, and then it was the Dream Warriors, and then it was, I forget where it went after that, but yeah. And there was the New Nightmare in like 1992. I think they redid it, right?
There was Dream a Little Dream with the Coreys.
Really? I don't remember that one at all.
You don't remember Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, and Robert Englund and Dream a Little Dream?
No.
The older people will laugh. You don't remember that Corey Feldman movie? Corey Feldman movie? Do you remember the Coreys? You ever hear about the second movie? So the second movie has, I don't remember. Damn it. I'm going to start telling a story that I don't know at all, where I don't know all the story. You'll have to look it up. But there's
hasn't stopped you before.
Nope, it hasn't stopped me before. All I'm trying to do is give you guys a kernel of something to start then, digging into.
Bill gives you the black and white lines. You color it in.
So have you ever heard about that thing with part 2, that there's a heavy gay subtext?
No.
Yeah. So the director would deny it. He's like, no, we didn't make this with any gay intentions. But when you watch the movie now, there's a big gay following for part 2, because now they're saying, yeah, we did put some stuff like that in there. The main guy is a very outspoken gay guy. Now, he wasn't then. So when you think about that movie or you watch it again, there's a lot of gay scenes that were intentionally put in. There was a lot of phallic things that were intentionally put in. Here, I got it here on ScreenRant.com. In recent years, the film has become both a cult classic and beloved film to the LGBTQ community, despite its many plot holes. Shoulder has retracted some of his comments from years ago, stating that there is definitely subtext in the film, and he acknowledges it now. I guess that was the director, but was blind to it at the time of production. Maybe he was a producer. Chasik or Chaskin, maybe he was the director, has since said the subtext was always intentional, and he had written the script to comment on the AIDS crisis, gay panic, and the angst young men experience if they struggled with their sexuality. So we all watched a Freddy Krueger movie and didn't pick up any of this. I only learned this like a year ago.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I love a story like that.
Sounds like it was the writer, too.
Yeah. Kind of worked it in. I love, that's what art should be. It should always have subtext.
Sure.
And I didn't read any of that. I was too young. It fell right off me. None of that, I remember the shower scene and going, oh, I don't know, that's a naked guy. Yeah, we can move on. But nothing struck me as being odd. It was spooky. The whole scene, the whole movie was
the
dark.
whole thing was, right. I feel like every horror movie has like a bathroom scene, like that's like a fixture.
Yeah, I thought that was a cool story.
Yeah, that is. That's interesting. I had no idea. Moving on to our next one here on the list. 1974. So this one actually was the oldest of the ones we talked about so far. 1974's Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Leatherface. I know you mentioned him at the top. I don't have a whole lot to say. I know we mentioned on here before that he is inspired by serial killer Ed Gein. Comes from a family of misfits, and he cuts off people's faces and sewed them together and wears them as a mask, and now he runs around with a chainsaw killing people. Not much more to say about it, right?
Not much more to say. I mean, they have a sort of a history like Evil Dead. Remember we talked about that, how Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell made like a low budget. Well, that's all Texas Chainsaw Massacre was. Tobe Hooper made this thing with his buddies and, no budget really. And that's why there's a lot of low budget running around. And that movie always scared me the most, that first one, because it looks like found footage. Like we were talking about with the Blair Witch, it looks like found footage. Yes. It looks raw. But the second movie came out, and now it was Cannon Group, right? Our favorite Cannon.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, here's some more money. Why don't you make something better or make a sequel or do something? So Tobe Hooper's like, well, I want to step it up. And now the second movie is totally different than the first. The characters are wacky, crazy. Yeah. Dennis Hopper's in it playing a lunatic cop. Like the whole thing is totally different than the first movie. It's a hell of a lot more fun. It's a great 80s horror movie. And then 3 was just like the usual recipe. 3 is another swing and a miss. And then 4, 5, 6 are duds. And then the whole thing loses steam until 2022 when they decide to reboot the goddamn thing.
Right.
Which I didn't like that either.
I remember you saying that you thought that the found footage feel of part 1 made you feel like you were going to see something that maybe you shouldn't see, like something is going to make the final edit that maybe shouldn't. Like maybe I am watching a snuff film here.
Oh, is this Faces of Death, or is this a movie in the movie theater?
Yeah, but you can still find, Leatherface did become an icon. You can still find over at the Halloween stores, they have the Leatherface animatronics, and people still dress up like Leatherface and just grab an apron and a Leatherface mask and fake chainsaw, and you got yourself a costume. So definitely fits the bill here of slasher movie villain. Next up, 1996's Scream with the Ghostface Killer. And this was an interesting one because you kind of hinted at it just through conversation. We both kind of hinted at how there were these tropes that came into the horror movies. And Scream would really point these tropes out. Like you mentioned, like, oh, you have sex in a horror movie? You're going to die. You use drugs in a horror movie? You're going to die. It's always the goody two-shoes girl at the end that ends up saving everybody. So, and this was Nev Campbell too, right?
Yep.
Probably the most memorable thing for me of the Scream movie was like the first 7 minutes with Drew Barrymore when she gets slaughtered by the Ghostface killer, and he calls on the phone, asks what her favorite scary movie is, and she has to play by the rules. He was like a serial killer that was, not randomly picking people, but he had his targets and he would just play games with them, and they had to follow the rules of the horror movie genre and the tropes that came along with it. And that's how he tormented people right up to the point where he stabbed them. He always killed them with a knife.
Yeah, I do remember that Drew Barrymore scene because she was a big star, and it's like she's in the first 3 minutes and then gets killed, and half her body's hanging there, and you're like, what the hell am I in for? Like, she's already out of the movie. Now that's something that's, you'll see that now and go, oh, okay, that old trope. But that was the first time you saw a big star get dispatched early and thrown right off the rest of the movie.
Yeah, and talking about tropes, I mean, she was like outside. She did get outside. She was running across the lawn. She almost got right there to where the person was getting ready to help her, and then she got like stabbed in the chest and she had no voice, or they cut her throat and she had no voice and she couldn't yell, and like help was right there, but just out of death or just out of grasp,
So Wes Craven made that.
Yes.
I don't think he made the others.
Who prior made Freddy
Right.
Krueger.
And a lot of Hills Have Eyes. That's he's got a good imagination sometimes. And this was a great one, but
Yeah.
did it deserve 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sequels? I saw part 2. Maybe I saw part of part 3 and said, there's no juice in this tank. There's no gas in this tank.
And then on top of Scream, and all the sequels you mentioned there, then they started doing like the scary movie parodies, like the stoner movie parodies. Like they fucking built on the whole Scream thing too. And it was
I like
just
those better.
too much.
Those are even.
Yes, sometimes. The Wayans brothers were in there doing some funny shit. But Ghostface Killer, that got to be a top-selling mask every year. I mean, you can go to the dollar store and buy a Ghostface Killer mask.
Yeah, I never got that into Scream.
They even put Ghostface Killer into like Fortnite. Like I know right now, my son was just playing it. They have Michael Myers in there, so every Halloween they do like a download pack or a Halloween update. And Ghostface Killer was definitely a bad guy in there like last year, but this year it's Michael Myers. I know.
So I do remember it sort of kicked off a period of smarter horror movies, right? Because we were getting our Halloween 5 and 6, and they were terrible and they were bombing. And then all of a sudden this thing came out and it was kind of smart, and it was well acted and it was well executed. And then all of a sudden you had a fandom for horror movies again. They made something called The Faculty. I remember that being I remember there was a guy named Kevin something who was making all these smarter horror movies. I Know What You Did Last Summer. Not that they're really smarter now in hindsight, but they were smarter than the stupid, cliched.
The same guy that did The Faculty did one called like Species, I think.
I remember that.
Jennifer's Body.
Jennifer's Body came later. But you're remembering. There was a period of them.
It was around the same field.
And that's when Halloween H2O came out, because it was still riding on that kind of new 90s style horror.
I was going to say, I was still in high school, so it was late 90s and then early 2000s. Then with H2O coming out, that came out in 2000. So, yeah, makes sense.
You know what I was just thinking too? What made it feel different? Because it felt like Dawson's Creek with Michael Myers. It was a lot more drama.
Yeah, kind of.
with the people than I remember ever seeing in other horror movies.
Dawson's Creek with murder. I love it. Next one on my list, I didn't think you were going to mention, but goddamn you did. 1960s Psycho. Alfred Hitchcock's classic with Norman Bates. That was definitely, he was a serial killer. He was a slasher villain.
Guess he was the first, in a way.
Yeah, probably.
See, that's my thing. He is the template for this. You come in, you slash, and you go. It was never mutilate, chop up, just turn somebody into mashed potatoes. It was slash. And that's why I look at some of these monster movies now and they call them slashers. I'm like, it's not a slasher. It's just not. A slasher is what we had in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Yeah. And the thing that made him so scary was that it was truly based on mental illness. This could have happened. This does happen. It's mental illness, I believe, is what makes people in real life kill. So the idea that Norman Bates was obsessed with his overbearing mother throughout life, and then she died, and now he snapped, and like he's just going about business as usual, but like doing what is it's not much different than what Mrs. Voorhees was doing in part 1 of Friday the 13th. She still heard Jason talking to her, and he was telling her to get revenge. So like that was her snapping and not knowing how to cope, and it was basically the exact opposite of what Norman Bates was doing in Psycho way back, exactly 20 years prior in Hitchcock's movie.
Well, you got to think too, Psycho and Norman Bates, there's a ton of movies we're not talking about because they're a little older than us. But you got to remember there was like, Jesus, I mean, everything that Romero did out after he did Night of the Living Dead was all stuff that one guy being gruesome in most cases. 1974, there was Black Christmas. That was like the template for, Halloween. I think I remember somebody telling me. But yeah, that's a crazy person, and not like that's a person in a Santa suit at times, I guess, but not like a monster. And that's all inspired by Psycho. It's all inspired by Norman Bates.
Right. Let's think about Falling Down with Michael Douglas, where he just fucking snaps one day after he loses his job and he just starts going out and killing people in East LA. Remember that?
Yeah.
That's kind of along the same lines. It's just a guy that had a really shitty day. I don't know if it's a slasher movie. I'm probably gonna cut it out, but like that's what I just thought of while we're talking about this.
No, it really is. Like that's how a lot of this happens. Just boom, one day you're gone and you just kill it.
Real life
and
shit.
And the slashers, you never know why either. You're like, I don't know what's pissed them off. That's what's even scarier about them. You don't know why they're coming after you. What did I do?
Yeah, right. Michael Myers. I mean, like he just killed his sister one night. We don't know why he killed his sister, and he just had like fucking bloodlust for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
insane.
Yeah. That's why they're scary.
Dr. Loomis said, man, he was evil incarnate. After all that, I'll round out this list with 1998's Child's Play and Chucky.
Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end.
Definitely the weakest of these characters, I think, but you asked about Chucky if he was a ghost, and I was like, no, he's a slasher movie villain. We'll talk about him on that show. So now I'm talking about him. But like, I remember it being funny. He had like the dad joke lines and like the inappropriate swearing when he says fuck you to the old lady that said what an ugly doll on the elevator and stuff. So like there was like that funny stuff, and then he would be funny and kill somebody, and he was the good guy doll that was possessed by the guy before he got shot up by the cops. But definitely, I mean, I was over at Halloween Spirit earlier this week, and there was still a Chucky good guy doll you could buy, and there's costumes of the good guy doll, so it's still out there. There's series, there's been sequels. Halloween Horror Nights down in Universal in Orlando, they're still doing like full-on haunted houses to Child's Play, but I feel stacked up to the rest of these villains, he's probably low on the totem pole for me.
I liked him. I was into him. But again, it's another one that started serious and got sillier and sillier and sillier. And now he's got a wife, and he's got, and it's just getting goofier and goofier.
I was going to say, by the time we got Bride of Chucky, and that was just, once Jennifer Tilly got involved, I was like, man, this thing jumped the shark long ago.
Yeah. I tried to watch the show when it came back out. That they had a show, they had a Chucky show. I got like 3 episodes through. I was like, I don't even know what's going on here. This doesn't feel like a Chucky movie. This feels like a Dawson's Creek horror movie. So I was like, I'm not in. I'm not getting into this. But I liked him. I actually held one of the original dolls. I met Alex Vincent, the kid who plays the kid who held Chucky in the very first movie, and he was at a convention. He had it. He's like, "You want to touch it?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." I don't know which one it was, but it wasn't like one of the ugly ones. It was one of the ones before it would get ugly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because he started coming back with like stitches and staples, and
right.
As the more and more sequels went on, the doll got more and more fucked up. But in the beginning, it was just a what do they call him? It was a good guy doll in the movie, but in real life, we had My Buddy dolls. Remember that?
Definitely, it was based on those.
That's all it was.
What do you think when you're the CEO of the My Buddy company, and all of a sudden you wake up one day, you look and you're like, "What is this? A trailer for my toy is killing people." I mean, that's got to be horrifying. That's like if your favorite like Disney movies were coming to life and killing you. Wouldn't that be horrible to see as a kid? Stay tuned.
Funny you should mention that. I think we're going to be talking about that in a little bit. Stay tuned. Well, I forget what I was going to say. Oh, I think that CEO probably went ahead and was like, all right, my buddy's gone. Now we got Kid Sister. Hey, Kid Sister for the girls, everybody.
And then the franchise comes out with Bride of Chucky. It's like, oh no.
God damn, always one step ahead.
We can't outsmart them.
Well, only one thing left to do. You grab the gasoline, I'll grab the matches, and we're out of here.
I know what they can't come up. Let's have Kid Sister and my buddy come up with a baby. Let's see them. Oh, they did that too? Shit. Spawn of Chucky.
What do you got? I mean, that rounds out my list. So you school me. You know more than I do. These were the icons to me.
All right. So I wanted to name a few that I think some of the hardcore horror fans might be like, oh, you bastards, you didn't name this. So I asked AI because I don't like to work. And I said, AI, please tell me the 50 most popular slasher movies. And the thing guy gave me an excuse. It's like, well, people who they say this is popular would disagree. So I'm like, no, I just give me some bullshit list of 50. And it did. So a lot of this is bullshit. But we go through it, and Silence of the Lambs, not a slasher.
Nope.
No, not a slasher.
No.
Black Christmas, 1974, talked about that. Slasher. How about Prom Night? You know those two?
Sure.
There's Prom Night and Prom Night 2. Hello, Mary Lou.
I do, but like it didn't really create like an icon villain. And that's what I was going after.
Nah. I Know What You Did Last Summer. Yeah.
I had like the guy with the hook hand or like the fisherman's
that was
hook.
a slasher.
Yeah.
The Hills Have Eyes. No, they were killers, but not slashers. Candyman. Yeah.
Candyman, that was a huge inner city one. Yeah.
Final Destination. That's stupid. That doesn't belong on the list.
Nope.
Sleepaway Camp. Have you seen Sleepaway Camp?
I never have. No.
All right.
Worth it?
Listen, absolutely. All of them are worth it. This is another one that goes down the tubes, right? You see the first one, you go, holy shit, that was intense. But then 2, 3, and 4 are just like, what the hell? Yeah. Give that one a try.
What year did this come out?
Oh, 81. Like, it's an old one.
Okay, so it was early. Okay.
And it's got a shocking ending. That's like, you really don't see it coming.
Okay.
My Bloody Valentine, that was a slasher movie. There was a guy dressed up as like a miner.
I remember that. And I remember they had it in 3D.
That was the remake.
Was it?
Yeah. This would be the original one from 1981. Maniac, 1980. Then we got The Collector, Hush, Sorority Row, The Strangers now. That's not. Well,
but none of these are like having like iconic villains that people are still dressing up as today.
Well, Terrifier. He's on here. 2017. I see a lot of people dressing up as him.
Yeah, I almost put him on here. Because Terrifier 2 just came out, I remember. And that creepy black and white demon clown. I almost did, but I was like, maybe it's like a new classic.
What about Leprechaun?
Fuck me, it's a leprechaun.
He's a slasher.
Oh, that's a good call. Yeah, Warwick Davis's Leprechaun.
How about Jigsaw? I don't know if Jigsaw is a slasher.
Yeah, I mean, that was in that whole thing with like Hostel and the Saw movies and that was like a whole genre in and of itself. That was Blumhouse stuff too, I think, right?
The new one was. Actually, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I actually don't know. I lose track. Like, I lose track because I don't care. Pinhead, no.
Nope. I thought about Pinhead, but like that. Was it a slasher movie? I mean, there was like a lot of like sadism and shit like that, but like, yeah, the whole portal to hell and the puzzle box and like, it didn't really fit the feeling of a slasher movie.
I like this. All right, I'll name a few more. Victor Crowley from the Hatchet series. Like, that's actually, if you're a horror fan, you've watched that. Like, especially since the main guy who plays Victor Crowley is the same guy that plays Jason. So you definitely got to be a fan of that, I guess. Dr. Giggles. I remember when that came out. I was a kid. Dr. Giggles. And then Victor Zazaz. You know who that is because you're a Batman fan.
Victor Zazaz is a bad guy. He's a Batman villain.
Yeah,
right?
made this
He was a serial killer that when he would kill somebody, he would put like a hash mark on his skin.
Well, that's about it. The rest of these, the list goes on, and there are tons and tons of slasher movies that just flew under the radar. Most of those boxes that we look at and cherish today, when we're looking at like old pictures of VHS stores and friggin' Blockbuster, or even I'd like to go around. Sometimes you go to like little thrift stores and you see a lot of people, or not even thrift stores. What do they call those things? Flea markets, and people are selling VHS boxes now of some of these old horror movies, and almost all of them are slasher films because they were so cheap to make.
Well, of your list of 50 from the AI, I'll give you the Leprechaun. That was certainly an omission that could have made my list, but that's about it as far as like icons that I can think of that we didn't cover here.
I got Billy from Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yeah.
I forgot that, but that's about it. We got everybody else. Don't worry. We got everybody else.
All right.
I mean, we got Dr. Giggles. You know we did a good job when he made the list.
Now let's talk about some news.
This article from Bloody Disgusting discusses the auction of the original screen-worn Freddy Krueger glove from the movie A Nightmare on Elm Street. The glove is described as a one-of-a-kind prop and is currently up for bidding with an absentee bid already exceeding how much, do you think?
Oh, yeah. I know that this was actually authenticated and they have a blueprint with it of the actual concept of the glove. I'm going to say it's probably going for $150,000.
At this point, it was at $100,000. Yeah, I wonder what this will top out at.
Wow.
What would you pay? I mean, if you have the money to burn, like some of these rich people do, like I could see this going for a lot of money.
Yeah, I feel like if I was just pissing away money on like movie props, I'm still probably going Star Wars. I'm not going horror. I wouldn't be in the auction for this one.
If you had to have something, all right, either Freddy's hat, Freddy's glove, Freddy's sweater, or Freddy's underpants, what would you take?
You got to take the glove, obviously.
I take the underpants. All right, so
You would?
well, nobody knows if he wears them. I'd be the only one who knows. I know if he changes his underpants. I know so much about, a lot about people after investigating underpants. Let's stop there.
People say walk in their shoes. You say wear their drawers.
I'm gonna sound like a creep. Punch out Maverick. All right, let's talk about the strike. Can't believe it's still going on, man. It is still going on. The actors have finally sat down again with the studios. They really tried this time. They tried. And what I understand is the studios gave them a offer of some kind of percentage, like 10% or something, if the thing is a hit, which is what they want. Actors want to make some of the money if their thing becomes a hit, right?
Yeah.
The studios proposed it. And the actor said no. The nanny said no.
So what are they asking for now? Is this still about the whole thing with AI and digital scanning?
I'm not sure. Most of this stuff kind of is private conversation, but a lot of it is like only publicized for public sympathy and all that kind of thing. But evidently, when they said no, it went like this in the boardroom. All the studio people just stood up, turned, and walked out. And the nanny stood there with her jaw open, stunned. They just walked out. They said, that's it. That's our final. We are not doing any more. So now, Hollywood Union is calling on the studios to resume talks. Please come back to the table. They don't want to.
Do you think they're just calling their bluff?
I don't know what's going on. At this point, the studios really are as broke as they're saying. If they have all these assets and all this stuff that just isn't going to make money, and they're really sticking to their guns on this, I don't know what they do but sue the union. So we'll see. I don't know where it goes. I'm no expert in this, but at some point, if the studios are truly broke, hard to believe it. I don't believe it, but I don't know that they're not. I don't know that they're lying. But if they're truly broke, I don't know, where do you go from here? What do you do if you have an absolute stalemate and nobody wins?
I mean, it's foolish to say no. Like from the actor's perspective, it's foolish to say no. And then it is what they were asking for. Now they were offered what they were asking for. Now they're saying no. Like, was there a counter of a higher percentage? Was there okay, that plus this, and that's when they got up? If they're looking for the studio's perspective, they're looking for a way to turn the feeling of the court of public opinion, like showing that or talking about that story should be out there more if they're just saying, no, we want more, we're raking you over the coals. Like that's not even negotiation. That's just saying no and complaining.
And my understanding is that's actually the same offer that the writers got and took. So maybe the studios thought, all right, this is fair because they did it. Let's just settle. And no, didn't get taken. The nanny got angry. I just always think of her sitting there doing like no, we won't be like doing a voice. I know she's not, but it would just be so good if she was.
I know. You see her and you want to hear the voice. You remember, that's not even just the voice she did for the nanny. That was the voice she used for UHF, too.
It is actually her voice. She just kind of cranks it up a little bit, yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I'm saying she tweaks it quite a bit in roles, but you want to hear that extreme version when she's in there negotiating.
That would be, I hope there's tape. I hope tape leaks out. Oh, I would, because every picture of her is screaming at the top of her lungs like a Karen. Like you're just so scared. Like the pictures of her make you want to hide under your table because she looks mad.
Yeah.
But I would love this. Oh God, I would love to be it. It would be like the Jerry Springer show in there. I would love to watch the negotiations. Ted Sarandos grabs a chair, knocks the nanny over. Oh my God.
I'm picturing like Hollywood Deathmatch, like they used to have in claymation back on MTV back in like the late 90s.
That show. Is that one we could do today? Boy, that was a good show.
It was all parody, man. I feel like everything's fair in parody, right?
Who knows? Not if it offends somebody. You know, like this Miami teacher right now. I mean, she can't understand why anybody's offended.
Oh.
So Miami teacher showed Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey to 4th grade class. A mental health counselor has met with students who express concern. I think we talked about this movie. They just recently, because Winnie the Pooh is, I guess it's out there. Anybody can take it now. It's, Disney used it, but it's a story before Disney.
Public domain.
It's public domain, and that's why Disney used it. So anybody can use it.
Yeah.
That's my understanding. Okay, so they made a horror movie with it. And what happens? A Miami teacher shows it to students. 4th grade students, Scott.
Yeah, and this is actually a movie that the students chose, and he showed them 20 to 30 minutes of it. And this was like not a private academy, it was a charter school. And like parents are losing their mind.
The kids saw scenes of Winnie the Pooh and Piglet going on a violent rampage after Christopher Robin leaves for college. The movie was screened on October 2nd, and some students expressed discomfort. I'll bet they were like, whoa, we had no idea anything could be like this.
Dude, my daughter's in 4th grade. I could not imagine what would happen if they showed this to her in school. Like, she wouldn't sleep the next month.
Yeah. I mean, what human being in their right mind thought this was a good idea? And it's a person who's a teacher.
And like, did the teacher put the movie on and then just like leave the fucking room? Like, how do you let this thing just roll on for 20 or 30 minutes?
I have no idea. One kid at some point in my elementary school popped in a VHS tape of Caligula, and the teacher got that thing off in a millisecond. This teacher just sat there and watched the horror. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, I just can't believe it.
Holy shit.
The world we're in now, people.
I also, and speaking of this movie, like, I hear from people it's not very well done. Like, it was created in 10 days. Like, this was rushed out to be the first inappropriate thing created with the Winnie the Pooh, I'd say license, but it's not a license. And just to be clear, with public domain, yes, the characters and names and things are public domain, but like the likeness that most people think of, like the Disney likeness with like the yellow bear with the red shirt, like that is still under copyright law by Disney because that's like their imagery of that character. They couldn't use Tigger in this movie because Tigger is still not a part of public domain. That, the Tigger character came along later. It was just Piglet and Winnie the Pooh and I believe Eeyore. But those are the only things that this movie could use, and they could not look like Disney's characters.
Well, Christopher Robin, too, they just said.
Christopher Robin, yeah, he was in the original book, too. Was it like Milne? J.J. Milne wrote these books, I believe?
Mim? M-I-H-M? That rings a bell. Maybe it was Milne.
It was M-I-L-N-E.
Yeah. I don't know. The other day, somebody brought up a book, and I said, oh, I remember that. That's a Beverly Cleary book. I was like, how the hell did I remember Beverly Cleary? You remember that?
I read Beverly Cleary. I do. Yeah. Tales of the Fourth Grade Nothing and Super Fudge.
And Judy Blume.
Oh, that was Judy Blume. I'm all over the place.
Wow.
I'm all over the place. That was all Judy Blume.
That was one of those memories that just like, I don't know how it slipped out of the deepest, darkest recesses of my brain into the forethought of whatever I was talking about. Beverly Cleary. All right, let's get back to the news.
I was wrong. It was A.A. Milne, not J.J. Milne, but A.A. Milne wrote those books.
Nobody can send that in as a fuck-uppery.
That's right.
We got it right.
On top of it.
We got it right before we shut down shop. Means we win. Marvel Studios is reportedly planning to use Avengers Secret Wars as a soft reboot for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. According to author Joanna Robinson, the film will serve as a way to prune elements that are not working in the MCU and bring back characters that were previously thought to be gone forever. Avengers Secret Wars is set to conclude the multiverse saga and is expected to adapt elements from Marvel Comics' Secret Wars storyline. While no director is confirmed for the film yet, it is scheduled to be released on May 7th, 2027, and is intended to be a significant shift in the MCU. So this is basically what they did before. They made 2 Avengers movies, and they're making 2 more. They're making one based on Kang, and they're making one based on Secret Wars. Instead of doing, Endgame 1 and 2, they're doing 2 separate things that are going to be somehow connected. The world has gotten so big in this damn show that if we were talking about Loki earlier, it was me saying it's just more of the stuff that I just don't care about anymore. I'm so over this multiverse thing.
Here's the whole problem. The term superhero fatigue is well discussed. So many stories about it. We've talked about it on here before. Other podcasts have talked about it. How are we going to overcome superhero fatigue? Let's just reboot the whole thing and give you more. No, we need less. We need to move away from fucking superhero movies and maybe revisit it when people are hungry for it again in 5, 10, 15 years. Pumping out more is just adding to the fatigue, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I suspect they aren't even going to listen to you. These movies, I guarantee it, they are going to introduce all of the X-Men. They're going to introduce all of Fantastic Four. It's going to be a massive crossover. And then the rest of the movies will pick up with those guys. And what they said about bringing back characters that are dead, like, yeah, they kind of need to do that. Like, we love Iron Man. He's probably happy to take a role. So, you can use multiverse shit as reasons to bring anybody back and reset this thing. I can't imagine Marvel going another 10 years and not having Captain America, Iron Man, or any of these characters again. Like, they're going to have to reboot them at some point.
They did it in the comic books. It's the exact same thing that happened in the comic books. They would kill off characters to sell issues, and copies, and then they would have another writer come in and reboot, and now it's this version of that guy. Yeah, I mean, it's been done in comics time and time again, but this is not solely a Marvel problem. I mean, I was thinking, listening back to the show from last week during my drive this week, you talked about how it's official that the Creature Platoon or whatever is going to be the brand new relaunch for James Gunn's DCU, and how I kind of question, like, so does that mean Blue Beetle that just came out isn't even part of like the franchise moving forward or the canon moving forward? I forgot. They're just now showing advertisements for an Aquaman 2 that's coming out that's already not even a part of any of this.
That's right.
Talk about fucking superhero fatigue, man.
Yeah, that's right. I did just see that.
Jesus Christ. I just saw the commercial while I was watching playoff baseball last night. I was like, holy shit, this movie doesn't even connect to anything beyond this movie. And not that it has to, but that's what these movies have become. I don't think that everything has to connect, but they made it that in their world, everything has to connect. And now, like, here's this thing we just put out, but we've rebooted the entire thing. Forget about it as soon as you see it. I'm not going to waste my time.
See, I look at it sometimes and go, yeah, but there's people that do want to see Jason Momoa do Aquaman again. Amy would, but there aren't them.
I know, your wife. I was just going to say.
And she'll see him in anything.
She'd watch him do anything. Wash his car, do the laundry. Yeah, she'd watch all of it.
She won't watch him in Conan when he did the Conan remake because he shaved his beard. She's like, can't watch that.
Oh.
At what point should these movie studios go, all right, I'm going to make an Aquaman movie. Jason Momoa is free. He'll take $10 million. I'll probably be able to make 20 on this, but it's small. Maybe these superhero movies can start to be made for a smaller audience if they could figure out how not to make the damn thing just blow the budget out of the water. And not make it look like a goddamn green screen show like half these Star Wars shows have been looking lately. Maybe they don't have to be movies. Just be small 2-hour releases on Netflix. They don't have to be giant circus shows at the movie theater.
They don't have to be summer blockbusters like they always try to have these tentpole movies, and they're just not. These movies aren't even bad. They're just not. And when they say that they're doing bad, they're just not doing what they used to do or what these studios have grown to expect them to do. But the movies themselves aren't necessarily bad or terrible movies. They're just more of the same. You know what I mean? And if it was more of the same and it was good enough before, I guess they think it's going to be good enough again. And maybe I'll watch it when it comes to streaming, but I'm sure as hell not going out and spending more money on it. Why did Barbie make almost $2 billion? Because it was something different.
Yeah, no, it's these damn producers, not the creatives, just dragging this stuff to death.
Yeah.
I like that I said circus show earlier. I made up a whole thing. He said tentpole. Yeah, that's where I was going. I mixed tentpole and
Circus
dog
man.
and pony show and all. I mixed it all together. I came up with circus show, a new word brought to you by Too Much CGI. All right, here's our last story. Director Matthew Vaughn, who's kind of getting big now, right? He did the Kingsman stuff. He did some of the good X-Men stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Director Matthew Vaughn revealed that he quit X-Men The Last Stand. That was the third one. That was the one Brett Ratner came in to do. And now he doesn't work in Hollywood anymore because he was hashtagged. He was Me Too'd. But before he came in, Matthew Vaughn was going to do it. This is a juicy story. I hope this is true. I really do. After this, he quit doing part 3, Matthew Vaughn, after discovering a plan by studio executives to deceive Halle Berry into reprising her role as Storm. Vaughn saw a script for the film that included a storyline involving Storm saving children in Africa with a thunderstorm. However, he learned that it was a fake script created to convince Berry to sign on with the intention of discarding it once she agreed. Disturbed by this deception, Vaughn decided to quit the project. Despite Vaughn's departure, Halle Berry did return to play Storm in X-Men The Last Stand, albeit with a different storyline. Holy shit, that's amazing.
So the fake script was that she was going to save African children, and they thought they were going to play it like appeal to her
humanity.
Yeah, maybe that was a show that.
Yeah, maybe it was a cause of hers.
Wow.
And Matthew Vaughn said, "This is how we do Hollywood here. This is how we do movies. No, I'm not going to do this." He ended up coming back and doing something, but yeah, he was supposed to do part 3 and didn't do it because he didn't like the backhanded tricks that they play in these studios.
Yeah. I kind of remember Last Stand or part 3. I feel like that was the last good one. Then they went into like Apocalypse, or this was bad too.
Yeah, most people hate this one.
So X2, I remember seeing, and I saw that in the theaters. I don't really recall X3.
It's the one with Jean Grey.
It's where they had
Fire.
Jean Grey at the end, and she became Phoenix, but then they never got any further. That's how they ended the movie.
Well, Wolverine had to kill her. She ended up killing Cyclops.
Oh, yeah. That was this one?
Yeah, Professor X got blown up. Yeah, this one was going to be like, oh my God, everything's changing.
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
This was like a giant mutants versus mutants fight. It was just a huge fight.
Yes.
And it was a CGI fight.
Yes.
And nobody liked this movie. It was a wasted opportunity.
They lied to get Halle Berry there. Allegedly.
Allegedly. True enough for our show. True enough for us.
Look at that, man. Writers back in the day, they were writing not just one script, but fake scripts to con actors into coming back to reprise their roles.
Yeah, she must have been very valuable in Hollywood. I wonder if that's before or after her hit and run. Oh, where are we going now? You're in the TMZ hour of Too Much CGI. All right, everybody.
Well, with that.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Scott, do you have any final thoughts?
No, thanks for joining in for the conclusion here of our Things That Go Bump in the Night series. Bill, do you know what we're talking about next week?
I don't.
It is our 1 year anniversary, buddy.
You gotta be kidding me.
1 year ago. First episode published October 23rd, 2022.
Wow.
So think about how you want to celebrate, because it's going to be a big show.
We're gonna fly all our friends in, all our guests that we've ever had.
We'll do something big. And yeah, we're coming up on some pretty big download milestones. So thanks everybody for listening. Tell a friend and join us next week for the big celebration.